ever get that feeling? Like, there's more to reality than we can see. Like, something else is going on just outside our perception.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, get ready, because this deep dive is going to take us straight into that feeling. We're tackling Edgar Allan Poe's Mesmeric Revelation.
Oh, excellent choice.
It's life, death, the entire universe, but seen through, well, mesmerism. It'll make you question, well, everything.
And you hit the nail on the head. It's captivating. Many people, they might just write mesmerism off, like it's a parlor trick.
Right.
But Poe, he takes this thing and he uses it to explore huge philosophical concepts, consciousness, God, what exists beyond what we know.
It's like he's using mesmerism as like a tool, a way to get to knowledge that's hidden, things logic and reason just can't grasp.
Yeah.
But before we get too far into it, can you set the stage? Who was Edgar Allan Poe, really? And what was this whole mesmerism craze?
Okay, sure. So Poe, master of the macabre, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't just writing scary stories. He was plugged into the intellectual scene. Science, philosophy, all of it.
He was a man of his time.
Absolutely. And in the 19th century, mesmerism was huge. This idea of changing your state of consciousness. Totally captivating back then.
So kind of like hypnosis, right?
Exactly. People were obsessed with the potential of the mind. Now, Poe was a skeptic, right? Didn't think you could prove the soul's immortality. Not through normal philosophy, anyway.
Oh, okay.
But mesmerism, that was different. It was a new way to explore those deep questions. And that's where Mesmeric Revelation comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So tell me about the story. Who are the players?
At the core, you've got two main figures. You've got this narrator, just called P, and then his patient, Mr. Van Kirk. Very, very ill. P totally believes in mesmerism, been treating Van Kirk with it. But Van Kirk, total skeptic, doesn't believe a word of it. No immortal soul for him.
So we've got P, the believer, who uses mesmerism, and then Van Kirk, the skeptic who's being treated.
Yes.
I'm guessing Van Kirk doesn't stay skeptical for too long, though, right?
And this is where it gets fascinating. Van Kirk, he starts having these experiences.
Yeah.
Through mesmerism, and it gives him these glimpses into a different kind of consciousness.
Okay.
He starts feeling it, sensing his soul, even if his logical mind can't quite grasp it. And that shift, that's what Poe is exploring here.
It's like the mesmeric state. It's like a back door into his mind. It's letting him tap into something he couldn't access before.
Precisely. He's feeling it, experiencing it. His rational mind can't deny it. And it pushes him, toward accepting that maybe, just maybe, the soul is real.
So how does Poe actually use mesmerism, this tool, to delve into these complex philosophical ideas?
So Poe frames the whole story as a conversation. P and Van Kirk, well, Van Kirk's mesmerized. And as they talk, P, he asks these really specific questions, almost guiding Van Kirk further down this rabbit hole of existence. And Van Kirk, in this heightened state, he just offers these profound insights. Poe seems to be suggesting that we all have this deep well of knowledge in us.
Yeah.
But we can only access it in certain states of mind.
It's like finding a hidden door in your house that you never knew was there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And asking the right questions. That's finding the key. That's what unlocks these deeper meanings in this mesmeric state.
Okay, enough build-up. What kind of deeper knowledge are we talking about here? What does Van Kirk actually reveal?
This is where it gets really wild. Van Kirk starts describing God, but not how you'd expect. He calls God unparticled matter.
Unparticled matter. Sounds less like Sunday school, more like a physics lecture.
Right. I know, it's interesting. Poe blends these hard science concepts with spiritual stuff, and it's really thought-provoking. So Van Kirk says there are these different levels of matter, and the most pure form, the most refined form, is unparticled. And that, he claims, is the essence of God.
That's a very different way to think about the divine.
I know, and it challenges that classic separation, right? The one we make between spirit and matter. Maybe, just maybe, they aren't so different after all.
Okay, so God is unparticled matter. Where does Poe take us next?
Fasten your seatbelt, because here's where it gets wild. Van Kirk then says that thought itself, just the act of thinking, it's the movement of this unparticled matter. He says God's thoughts, that's what actually formed the universe.
Wait, so our thoughts have the power to shape reality?
That's the implication, yeah. Since we humans are like mini versions of this divine mind, we also have that creative power through thought. You find similar ideas in different spiritual traditions, but Poe makes it feel so real.
It's a lot to process. How does this connect to the idea of life and death?
So Van Kirk, he introduces this idea of two bodies. One, the physical body, obviously, bound by the material world.
Right.
But the other, he calls it the ultimate body. It's not bound by anything. And it can experience a much wider reality.
So there's more to us than just what we see in the mirror.
Yes. Van Kirk says our senses, they limit us. Death isn't the end, but a transformation. We're free from the physical and go to this ultimate state of being.
So death becomes less like an ending, more like a metamorphosis into something greater.
Yes, exactly. It's an interesting take on life after death, going beyond the traditional. He's looking at the nature of consciousness, of how we perceive, and it gets even wilder. He says pain, it's essential for true happiness.
Hold on, really, pain is like the key to happiness. That just feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, at first glance, for sure. But he says our experience here in the physical world, all the limitations, the suffering, it's necessary to create contrast. Without it, we couldn't appreciate the bliss of that ultimate life. Like, you can only really understand light if you've experienced darkness.
Yeah. So it's all about perspective. Our struggles here make that eventual release, that ultimate state, even better because we have a comparison.
Yeah, exactly. He's flipping heaven and hell on their heads. And get this, he says that truly substantive vastness of infinity. Our senses can't even grasp it.
Okay, I'll be honest, that one's a bit over my head. What does that even mean? The truly substantive vastness of infinity sounds like something out of Star Trek.
It does, right? But think about it. We look up at space, and our senses, they tell us that's it, that's the edge. But what if it's not? He's suggesting that this unparticled matter, this stuff we can't even see with our limited senses, that's the real deal. He even calls the beings who can perceive it, who live in this ultimate state, angels.
So there's this whole other level of reality right alongside ours that we're totally blind to.
Exactly. Our reality, it's like a tiny bubble in this giant, complex existence.
It's humbling, if not a little scary, when you put it like that.
It really is. And what's amazing, Poe uses Van Kirk's mesmerized state to explore all of this. But he never actually says if he believes it himself. He leaves it up to us, you, me, the listener. We grapple with it.
Classic Poe, a master storyteller. He throws these mind-blowing ideas out there and then just leaves you hanging. Is it a glimpse into another reality or just, a dying man's ramblings?
Exactly. And speaking of dying men, the way it ends, it makes it even more ambiguous.
Right, Van Kirk dies right after this, doesn't he? What are we supposed to take away from that?
He does, right after he reveals all of this. But here's the unsettling part. Poe says his body, it goes rigid almost instantly, like something caused a rapid dramatic change.
Okay, no, that's just creepy. Is Poe hinting that Van Kirk's soul actually went to that ultimate life? Or is that just Poe being Poe, ending on a dark note?
Right, the million-dollar question. And true to Poe, he leaves it open. Did Van Kirk actually experience the afterlife through mesmerism? Or was it just his brain shutting down? He makes us think about it long after we're done reading.
Which I love. And on that note, we'll be right back, and we'll keep exploring Poe's Mesmeric Revelation right after this.
And we're back, still swimming in Edgar Allan Poe's Mesmeric Revelation.
Right.
The story just keeps getting weirder, more interesting, every sentence.
Poe, he's got this way of getting under your skin, even now, centuries later. Those anxieties, those mysteries, they're still with us.
Before we took a break, we were talking about, Van Kirk's death, that image, his body stiffening. Poe knew how to freak people out.
He did. It really makes you think. Maybe there was something more to Van Kirk's last moments.
See, that's the beauty of Poe. He gives you this creepy scene, but no answers. Makes you think about it. That sudden rigidity. Was it just his body? Or did his soul actually leave, go to that ultimate life?
He's like holding up a mirror to our own fascination with, death, what comes after, but also reminding us that some things we'll never know.
Exactly. He's not afraid of the big questions, life, death, consciousness. He makes you face them, even if it's uncomfortable.
Speaking of uncomfortable, we've covered a lot. As we wrap this up, what are the big takeaways from Mesmeric Revelation? What should we be thinking about?
Well, I think one of the most important things is how Poe, through Van Kirk, he makes us question reality itself. Like, what if our senses, what if they only show us a tiny part of something much bigger? Just like Van Kirk says.
Like that saying, we don't know what we don't know. But Poe takes it way further.
He does. And then there's consciousness. If our minds, like Van Kirk suggests, are part of this unparticled matter, what happens when we die? Do they just dissolve back into the universe?
You're making me think about my place in the universe. It's amazing, but also kind of scary, right? To think about existing in this massive expanse.
I know, right? But that's Poe for you. He makes you deal with it. Those big existential questions. He invites you to explore them, even if the answers are unsettling.
He doesn't make it easy, that's for sure. So we've talked about reality, about consciousness. What else should we take away from Mesmeric Revelation?
Don't forget, Poe used mesmerism to explore these ideas. And back then, mesmerism, it was controversial, even scary.
Right. People thought it was dangerous. A way to mess with your mind.
Yeah, and Poe, he was definitely drawn to that. But he also saw the good and the bad sides. It's a good reminder. It can be amazing to explore the unknown. But be careful. Think critically.
Don't mess with your mind unless you're ready for what you might find. Right. Good advice.
Well, we've explored a lot today. Mesmeric Revelation. Poe at his best. Any final thoughts?
Just this. Poe's stories, even the really out there ones, they're rooted in his time. The anxieties, the beliefs. When you read them, think about that context. The history, the science. You'll find some interesting connections.
Always more to discover. On that note, we'll leave you with this. If you, like Van Kirk, could get a glimpse of what's out there, of that ultimate reality, would you take it? Even if it meant facing the unknown. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Poe. Until next time, keep exploring.